My name is Danny, and this is the scariest thing that ever happened to me. It was a freezing winter night in Yellowstone National Park, and my family had come for a snowmobiling trip. The snow was thick, the trees were covered in ice, and the air was so cold it hurt to breathe. But I loved it. My big brother Jake and I hopped on our snowmobiles, ready to race through the snowy trails. "Stay on the marked paths," Mom called, but we were too excited to listen. We revved our engines and zoomed off into the woods, leaving our parents behind. The wind whipped past my face as I steered my snowmobile through the trails, the headlights lighting up the snow like tiny stars. Jake was ahead of me, laughing as he sped up. "Catch me if you can," he shouted. I grinned and pushed my snowmobile faster. Then, something weird happened. Jake turned a corner, and when I followed, he was gone. There were no fresh tracks in the snow, no sound of his engine, nothing. I hit the brakes, my heart thumping. "Jake?" I called. Only the wind answered, whispering through the dark trees. I checked my phone. No signal. My breath came out in little white puffs as I looked around. The sky was getting darker. The trees seemed to grow taller. I was alone. I turned my snowmobile around, following my own tracks back to the main trail. But then, the tracks were gone. I gasped. The snow had filled them in like I had never been there. Panic set in. My fingers felt stiff on the handles. My snowmobile's light barely cut through the swirling snow. "Jake? Mom? D-A-D," I yelled. Then, from deep in the woods, I heard it. A low, growling sound. It wasn't an animal. It wasn't the wind. It sounded like something big, something hungry. I turned my snowmobile's light toward the trees. My breath caught in my throat. A shadow moved. It was huge. It had long arms, and its eyes, glowing yellow, were staring right at me. I couldn't move. My whole body was frozen, not from the cold, but from fear. Then, it started coming closer. I slammed the gas, my snowmobile jerking forward. The engine roared as I sped away, the monster's heavy footsteps crunching behind me. I didn't dare look back. I just raced through the trees, dodging branches, speeding faster and faster, hoping, praying it wouldn't catch me. Then, a light up ahead, a campfire, people. I burst out of the trees onto the main trail, the snowmobile nearly tipping over. The fire was up ahead, and Jake, Mom, Dad, they were standing by the fire, looking worried. "Danny, where have you been?" Mom shouted. I jumped off my snowmobile and ran to them, pointing back toward the woods. "Something's in there! Something huge! We have to go!" Dad grabbed a flashlight and shined it into the trees. Nothing. Just darkness and falling snow. "There's nothing there, buddy," Dad said, rubbing my shoulders. "You probably got turned around." "No! I saw it! It was... A loud snap came from the trees. We all heard it. A deep, growling voice whispered from the shadows, "Run!" Mom screamed. Jake grabbed my arm. We jumped on our snowmobiles and raced back to the cabin, never looking back. That night, as I lay in bed, I could still hear it. The wind howling through the trees, the soft crunch of footsteps in the snow, and a low, whispering voice just outside my window. "Run!" I know this is going to sound really scary, but you have to listen. I need to tell someone what happened. My name is Jake, and my two best friends, Danny and Max, and I do something every winter. We go out onto a frozen lake, Lake Superior, the biggest and coldest lake you've ever seen. It's huge, and when it freezes, it looks like an endless sheet of glass, stretching forever. We do it because it feels magical. The world is so quiet, just the wind and the crunch of snow under our boots. The ice makes strange sounds sometimes, little cracks and moans, but that's normal. That's not what scared us. This happened a few months ago, in December. I can still feel the cold in my bones. That night, it was snowing hard, big fat flakes swirling down like ghosts. The moon was huge and white, making the snow glow. It felt like we were the only people left on Earth. Danny was driving that night in his old truck, the only one that could handle the icy roads. We parked near the lake, bundled up tight, and walked through the trees. When we got to the shore, the ice looked solid. No cracks, no open water, just miles and miles of frozen silence. Max laughed and picked up a rock, throwing it onto the ice. Clunk. Nothing happened. So we walked out further and further. We were maybe 30 feet from the shore when we saw it. Something moved at the edge of the lake. At first, we thought it was a bear. It was big, lumpy, and hunched over. It walked slowly, dragging something behind it. Then it stood up, too tall, too skinny, too human. "Is that a person?" Max whispered. Nobody moved. We were frozen. The thing kept walking onto the ice. And then we saw it clearly. It was a man, wearing a bear costume. Not a real bear. Not a regular person. A man inside a floppy, furry, creepy suit. And he was dragging a bag. A black, lumpy bag. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't make a sound. My chest felt tight. My hands were sweating inside my gloves. The man reached the ice, stopped, and then... zip. He unzipped the bear suit and stepped out. His face was... wrong. I don't know how to explain it. His smile was too wide. His eyes were too dark. And he didn't even look cold, standing there in just his jeans and a jacket in the freezing wind. Then he knelt down and raised something over his head. A rock. Bam! He slammed it against the ice. Bam! 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 The ice trembled under our feet. He was trying to break it, to sink whatever was in that black bag. I felt Max's hand on my arm, pulling me back. We started stepping away, slow, quiet. We didn't want him to see us. Then, "Hey!" the man shouted. I didn't look back. I ran. Danny and Max ran too, our boots slipping, breath coming out in clouds, hearts pounding in our chests. Was he following us? I didn't know. I didn't want to know. We made it back to the truck, jumped in, and Danny floored it. The tires spun on the ice for a second before catching, and we tore out of there, leaving that frozen nightmare behind. For a long time, none of us spoke. We just listened to our own breathing, too scared to say anything. Finally, Danny whispered, "What was in the bag?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to think about it. But now I have to. A few days ago, my mom was watching TV. A news story came on. A missing child, a little boy, gone since December, and my stomach dropped. Because that was the same night we saw the man in the bear suit, the same place, the same time. I don't know what we saw that night, but I have a feeling, a horrible, awful feeling, that the black bag he was trying to sink wasn't just trash. And now, I can't stop wondering, what if we hadn't run? I have always loved skiing. My parents were skiers, and they taught me as soon as I could walk. Snow, speed, the cold air rushing past my face. It was home. A few winters ago, when I was in college, my friends and I went on a ski trip to Killington, Vermont. The mountain was huge, with so many trails we could barely cover them all. It was me, Dylan, Luke, and Asher, the perfect trip, until we met them. It was our last day. We were at the top of the ski lift, deciding on our final run, when two girls walked over. They weren't wearing helmets, which was strange. They were beautiful, so beautiful it didn't even make sense. One had long black hair, the other golden blonde. They called themselves Lena and Eva. "You guys look fun," Lena said, smiling too big. "Yeah," Eva added. "This mountain is full of old people. Want to try something more exciting?" They told us about a secret trail called Devil's Forest. I had never heard of it, but they insisted it was amazing. A hidden glade trail, barely known, that cut through deep, untouched forest. "It's a shortcut back to the lifts," Lena said. Luke and Asher were instantly interested. "Come on," Eva purred. "It'll be fun." Something felt off. But I didn't want to be the one to ruin the fun. We followed them. After skiing for a while, they stopped at a narrow path. "Take off your skis," Lena said. "We have to walk a little." "Take off our skis?" That wasn't normal. Luke hesitated. "Are you sure this is a trail?" Eva's smile flickered, just for a second. Then she was sweet again. "Of course," she said. We took off our skis. The snow here was pristine. No tracks, no sign that anyone had ever been here. I heard a snap, a branch breaking. "Who's there?" I asked. No answer. My stomach twisted. I wanted to turn back. "Just a little further," Eva urged. Then she pulled out a small bottle. "Drink," Lena said, holding it out. "For courage." Luke and Asher laughed and took big swigs. Dylan hesitated. "I'm good," he said. Lena's expression changed, just for a second. Her smile dropped into a dark, angry scowl. Then, just as fast, she was smiling again. "Come on," Eva coaxed. Dylan took a small sip, then handed the bottle to me. I pretended to drink, but I didn't. Lena and Eva didn't drink either. My head spun. My instincts screamed. "Let's just go," I said. "Too late," Lena whispered. She grabbed her skis and skied into the trees. Eva followed. Luke and Asher laughed and chased after them. Dylan and I had no choice but to follow. The trail was steep. The trees were too close. The snow felt heavy under my skis. Then I noticed there were no signs, no markers, no other ski tracks. The forest was getting darker. I reached the bottom, heart pounding. Something was wrong. Luke was on the ground, unconscious. Asher swayed, his eyes rolling back. Then he collapsed. Dylan and I ran to them, shaking them, screaming their names. They didn't wake up. "What did you do?" I yelled at Lena and Eva. They just smiled. I felt dizzy. My arms were heavy. My vision blurred. I was next. "He didn't drink enough," Eva muttered. Lena frowned. "Let's go." Then they started taking Luke and Asher's skis. They were stealing from us. No, that wasn't it. I saw them glance to the woods. A black van was waiting. 4 men got out. One of them pointed right at me. "Run!" I didn't think. I just moved. I stumbled back into the trees, following my own tracks. I reached Dylan, shook him, threw snow in his face. "Get up! We have to go!" His eyes fluttered open. What? "Wake up, Luke and Asher!" I shouted. We shook them hard. After what felt like forever, they started to wake up. The men never came. We waited, listened. Nothing. Then we ran. It took hours to find our car. We told the police. They investigated. They never found them. Years later, I still don't know who they were, what they wanted, why they targeted us. But I know one thing. They were not just 2 girls. And Devil's Forest? It never existed. My family has a little vacation house in the deep, snowy woods of Alaska. My parents love skiing, and that's why they bought it a long time ago. It's old, creaky. The wood groans when you walk. My dad always says it's falling apart, and one day, he'll tear it down. This story happened when I was just a kid. My little brother Timmy and I were up in Alaska during a terrible blizzard. The snow fell in thick sheets, covering everything in white. Our house sat in the middle of the woods, and there was a long, empty road that led to other cabins. But most of them were empty in the winter. Nobody lived there. Timmy and I loved playing in the snow. That day, we decided to play our favorite game, a snowball fight with hidden treasure. We built forts, and each fort had a giant snowball, the treasure. The goal? Steal the other person's snowball and bring it back to your fort. Timmy ran down the road to build his fort near one of the empty cabins. "I'll blow the whistle when I'm ready," he yelled. I waited and waited. The wind howled through the trees. The snow kept falling, but I never heard the whistle. Something felt wrong. I decided to go find Timmy. Should I take the road or go through the woods? The woods were dark and scary, even in the snow. I took the road. The wind whipped my face, but I wasn't cold. My thick coat kept me warm. I reached the cabin where Timmy was supposed to be. I looked through the bare trees. Timmy wasn't there. His fort was built. His footprints were in the snow. But he was gone. I stepped closer, my boots crunching in the snow. Then, a voice. "Excuse me, are you looking for your brother?" I spun around. An old woman stood at the front door of the cabin. She had a thin, wrinkled face and a strange smile. Too wide, too friendly. I didn't know what to say. We're playing a game," I mumbled. Her smile stretched wider. "Your brother isn't here." A shiver ran down my spine. Then, movement in the window. Upstairs. Someone was watching me. Half of their face was hidden behind a black beanie. The lower part was tucked under the window frame. Only their eyes showed. I felt sick. I looked down. Footprints. A second set of footprints led to the cabin door. Were they Timmy's? The old woman stepped closer. "Come inside. It's cold out here." Number. I froze. My heart pounded. Then, "Timmy!" I screamed. Silence. The woman's smile vanished. Then from inside, thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps, coming down the stairs. I ran. The woman screamed something behind me, but I didn't listen. I ran as fast as I could, snow flying under my boots. My lungs burned. The wind roared in my ears. Then, a whistle, my dad's whistle. I ran toward the sound, up the road, toward home. I saw them. Dad. Timmy. Standing at the driveway. Timmy looked scared. "Somebody was in that house," he blurted out. "They tried to get me to go inside." My dad's face turned dark. Without a word, he grabbed his hunting rifle and stormed down the road toward the cabin. We stayed inside with Mom, waiting. The clock ticked. The wind howled. Then, Dad came back. His face was pale. He spoke to Mom in a low voice, but I heard some of it. The front door was locked. Nobody answered. But I went to the neighbors. They called the owners. Then he looked at us. The owners weren't there this weekend. Nobody was supposed to be in that house. The police came. We had to describe the woman. The face in the window. The footprints. They searched the house. The back door was unlocked. But inside, empty. Nothing. No woman. No footprints. Nothing. After that day, we never went near that cabin again. We never played near that road, because we knew. Somebody had been in that house, and they wanted us to come inside. Thank God we didn't. My name is Tommy, and I will never go winter camping again. Not after what happened last year in the deep, frozen woods of Yellowstone National Park. My dad thought it would be fun to take me and my big sister Lily camping in the snow. "It'll be an adventure," he said. "We'll make a fire and drink hot chocolate under the stars," he said. He had no idea what was waiting for us in that dark, cold forest. We packed up our tent, sleeping bags, and a bunch of warm clothes. Dad carried a huge backpack, and Lily held the flashlight as we walked deeper and deeper into the snowy trees. The sun started going down fast, and the shadows stretched long and creepy over the snow. By the time we set up camp, the sky was black, and the trees creaked like whispering voices. Dad lit a fire, and we all huddled close, sipping hot chocolate from metal cups. The warmth felt good, but something didn't feel right. I had that weird feeling you get when someone is watching you. Crunch. I whipped my head around. Something moved in the trees behind us. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Lily laughed. "It's probably just a squirrel." Number. That was not a squirrel. Dad shrugged. "The woods make noises, buddy. Nothing to worry about." But I could tell he was lying. He heard it too. We finished our hot chocolate, and Dad told us to get in the tent. The fire flickered, making creepy shadows dance across the snow. I zipped myself up tight in my sleeping bag, listening. Then I heard it again. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Closer this time. "Dad?" I whispered. "Go to sleep, Tommy," he mumbled, turning over. Crunch. I held my breath. A slow, dragging sound scraped through the snow just outside our tent. It was right there. I squeezed my eyes shut. Then, a low, wheezing breath, right next to me. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. Then Lily let out a blood-curdling scream. The tent shook violently as something slammed against it. Dad shot up, grabbing his flashlight. "Stay inside!" he yelled as he unzipped the tent and jumped out. I peeked through the flap. The fire was out. The light from Dad's flashlight swept over the trees, but I didn't see anything at first. Then, Lily gasped. Footprints. Giant, twisted footprints circled our tent. They weren't from an animal, and they definitely weren't from a person. "We're leaving," Dad said. He didn't argue. He didn't act brave. He just started packing up fast. The second the tent was down, he grabbed my hand and Lily's and practically dragged us through the snow. Fast. Faster. The dark trees looked like they were closing in. Then Lily screamed again. The footprints were beside us. "Run!" Dad shouted. We ran. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. I didn't look back. I couldn't. A low growl rumbled from behind us, so close. I felt the air get heavy, like something huge was right there. Dad yanked us forward. We could see the truck, just a few more steps. "Don't look back." We dove inside, slamming the doors. Dad fumbled with the keys. Click, click. "Come on." Then I looked. Glaring yellow eyes in the trees. A massive dark shape stood in the shadows, watching us. The engine roared to life, and Dad hit the gas, spraying snow as we tore down the icy road. I kept staring out the back window. The eyes followed us until the trees swallowed them up. We never went back. Never will. Dad won't talk about it, and Lily pretends it never happened. But I know what I saw. I know what followed us, and I know it's still out there, waiting.